everyone, and welcome back to another video on Conqueror's Blade. As today we're going to be revisiting a little bit of a classic unit, of course, Tercios. I have done a video on these guys quite a long time ago, but haven't really revisited them at all very recently. So I thought they were kind of worth a little bit of a recheck-in, because they have suffered a fair bit, I think, over the past sort of 6 months or so since I actually did my video on them. I think they've seen a few nerfs, nothing massive, but it seems like almost every patch or every other patch there's 50-point damage reduction from Tercios, 50-point armor penetration reduction, rate of fire decrease. They just slowly seem to be getting nibbled away at little piece by piece, and I think they're slowly getting worse and worse. And they've used to be really one of my top favourite units. I still think they're a very good unit, but I think they have slightly lost their edge from where they used to be. So kind of why is that, and what are the main competitors? The main enjoyable thing for me about Tercios, and they've always been a bit of a love-hate unit for most people, because some people just say they're absolutely useless and, you know, hate them completely, and people like me have always traditionally really loved them, found them very nice to use. The reason I've always loved them is because of their tankiness. You know, musket damage, accuracy, everything else aside, they have 8,500 hit points and 720 piercing defense. And even then, I don't think that necessarily accurately reflects some of their softer stats in terms of damage reduction, etc. They stand up well. If a longbow hero starts shooting at them, you get time to move them out the way before they get killed. You know, they can take a Namcan volley and they're not all just going to drop dead immediately. And that means you can play them quite aggressively. From whenever you've watched any of my other ranged videos, if you have watched any of my other ranged videos, then you'll know I'm always a fairly aggressive player. Because I'm not much of a range player, really, I tend to just stick everything about 4mm behind the shield line and just shoot at point blank range. And because of that style that I use, the Tercios work quite well, because they are tanky. They can make a mistake. A pike militia can come around the side and start stabbing at them, and I've got plenty of time to deal with that, and they're not all just going to immediately get slaughtered. And that's what I really like about them, and that makes them flexible, in my opinion. They have a reasonable base speed, but not amazing. Obviously, 18 models, not loads, but it could be worse. You know, it is a tier 5 unit, likely to be expected. And for only 310 leadership, or only, at least they're not 350, I guess is what I'm trying to say. 310 leadership is still quite a lot. They aren't super accurate. I think traditionally it was always said that Tercios are a lot more accurate than things like the Tercio Arquebusiers, but in reality, I don't think they necessarily are. I think they're both pretty similar. They're both pretty inaccurate. And these guys, of course, don't have the same amount of damage as the Imperials. I mean, we only have to look. They actually have the penetration, 3.8, great, but their piercing damage is only 2.4. And if we go and find my Imperial Arquebusiers, then, well, 2.8, but they have a volley fire, which gives significantly increased. I was flicking around with the lines. I think the top line's better still. But you end up hitting sort of 5, 6, 7,000 a shot with these Imperials. But of course, conversely, they're a lot more fragile. 3,900 on the health and 400 on the piercing defense just isn't quite the same as in Tercio. So you're kind of training damage for flexibility, or at least that's kind of how I've always seen it. I think more recently, though, their damage seems to be dropping off more and more. And I found kind of the accuracy really isn't that great. So, I don't know, I feel like they've been slipping a bit. Combine that with the fact that obviously Stalwarts are such a meta unit at the moment. We're just seeing them on the battlefield so often that I kind of feel like they're shooting into shields a lot more than they used to do. You know, they used to have a much more unshielded or open units, in which case it's much easier for them to apply their damage. So, yeah, I think there's been a few losses in sort of recent months that have kind of sucked the lead a little bit out of these Tercios. But still, well worth a revisit. Still a very good unit, and still a one I've been enjoying playing. So let's hop into a few clips now, a few battles, see how we've been getting on, and yeah, see who we can put some lead balls through. So you join me on actually a slightly older bit of gameplay footage from Wallenberg, a map which strangely seems to have disappeared from the siege queue at the moment, so who quite knows what's gone on with that. But anyway, spawned in with our Tercios, already captured the B point, but still got the A and C point to go, and the enemy are putting up quite a stiff defence at the A point. So I'm bringing my Tercios in, and I'm just going to be trying to look for opportunities to apply damage with them, really. It seems to be the best way to play them. You know, they're not got the same burst damage as something like the Imperials. They're never going to get quite the same level of DPS, but if you can get them into nice positions, it's about building up the damage over time. And because of their tankiness and their survivability, they sort of do quite well in that way. Although one thing I think that has traditionally I've always said, which I kind of now regret, is I've always said they're a fairly accurate unit, or at least I've said they're more accurate than the Imperials. It's just really not the case, is it? I don't know if that's something that's changed more recently, or if I was just delusional about their accuracy. But yeah, it's pretty crap. They're yeah, when me saying that they are more accurate than Imperials, just a load of bollocks, really. It's just not true. So yeah, they miss quite a lot, but you can still get some hits. You know, you got 18 units firing, and they fire pretty quickly, so you do get hits even at range. I was trying to target down some of these enemy maul heroes down there, but Fortebrashiers did a good enough job without me there to assist. So I'm just looking for opportunities, looking for my targets, seeing if I can safely get somewhere to shoot at them. Obviously they are quite a tanky unit, these guys, but they still perform badly in melee combat. So it buys you more time to escape, and it means you're less threatened by enemy ranged heroes and things, so that's nice. But other than that, you know, if you get engaged in melee, it's not going to be a good thing. But I mean, in this sort of situation, I think they do really well. You know, we're shooting into a unit of hussars, getting 1500, 2000 damage per hit, wiping out a unit like that pretty effectively. I probably should have gone in a little bit earlier on. I was being a little bit hesitant because I thought what few of the team they were just going to quickly get overwhelmed, and if so, I wanted an opportunity to try and save the unit before it got killed. But when it looked like things were going a bit more favourably, I started to push in with my hero a little bit more as well. And the unit is still obviously on the steps, still firing away. Still racking up the damage, and as you see, the kills just keep on coming in slowly, and that's kind of what the unit does well at, just slowly applying that damage over time, building up the kills, and that's kind of what makes me like them so much. I pull back a little bit just to heal, and unfortunately in the meantime things start to turn against us a little bit, and more importantly I'm starting to run out of ammo. But with the bulk of the team dead on point, I'm starting to think, oh, maybe it's the time to go back and resupply. I'm obviously continually trying to use my glaive buff as well, giving him that 15% extra damage. Quite a big impact in that sort of thing. Start getting hit by Namkhans as well. Initially, damage isn't too great, of course, because this unit is quite tanky. But as we pull back and Maul tries to chase, this is quite funny. Bop! I'm not sure quite what he thought was going to happen, but yeah, if you line up straight on against a unit of Tercios, they're not that inaccurate. And they'll hit you in that sort of situation. And of course, because they hit for like 3k damage each, particularly at that range, you know, 18 models, 3k, yeah, it's not going to end very well for you. So he certainly met his maker. But in the meantime, the team is still pushing the A point. The enemy is still trying to defend, and with only 2 minutes left, we really needed to actually get the push on the A point going now. As we get the condos come in, I'm calling the unit back to me very shortly, because they're now back on the supply, they've got that ammo, but I'm probably going to come back in through the main gateway this time. And in the meantime, I'm just trying to use my hero to control them. Not to control them, to do a bit of extra damage. You know, try and keep our pressure up on the A point. So trying to get the Tercios back through the gateway, because it seemed like the most important way to go. And with only a minute 30 left, you know, we really need to be pushing the main point now. We really need to be going for it. Got quite a lot of the team doing a good push, which is really nice to see. We get some friendly cav coming in, so they're doing quite a good job there. Trying to get the damage in, managed to grab ourselves a hero kill, and kind of about that time our unit turns back up and we capture the point. So obviously now it's going to be on to C. C is normally a pretty easy one to get. We get a few shots off at the retreating units, but I'm not really expecting C to be a massive problem for us, because most of the time the enemy will pull back to the main base point. I mean, that's what I would do on this map as well. Trying to defend the C points a little bit on the impossible side. So yeah, tend to just pull back to that base point and just lead it. And anyone who tends to go to C just tends to get overwhelmed immediately and killed. So we're pushing up, so we've still got a good chunk of ammo, we're in a pretty good health situation. A few enemy units down there, just trying to grab a few kills where we can. But you know, really, we're just getting the odd kill here and there. As we push up, we see there's actually quite a few enemy ranged units around here. Obviously, the Tercios have like 8k hit points and good range stats. So against this sort of situation, you know, they're just shooting absolutely fine and completely obliterate low tier ranged units like this. They pretty much one-shot them. They're critting them for like 3k. yeah, I mean, they don't have that many hit points, so realistically, it's always going to end one way. Kind of as we say, C point falls really quickly. I'm kind of thinking where I want to go next. Didn't expect that mortar round. Oh, that really came out of nowhere. I did not see that one coming. So that kind of hurt the unit a little bit. And since they were kind of a bit low anyway, I send them back to the supply point, get them to heal up a little bit, kind of as we're deciding what we wanted to do next anyway. Because now we've got basically three ways in. The 2 gates around the sort of the final keep, and you can also get up the ladders above the walls here if you get enough friendly team support to sort of secure the bridgehead there and stop them enemies sort of rushing up the stairs. It can also be quite an effective way of fighting. So I call the unit to the closer supply point to me, rather than calling them directly to me, just moving them basically supply to supply. I thought about going in there, but yeah, I didn't fancy getting kidnapped and didn't really fancy that, to be honest, so just keeping out for the moment. Unit's still healing up, and then I'm just going to call them over to me, try and see if we can get them set up. Looks like we're getting some shots in with some friendly units here anyway, and maybe we can do a little bit more as we keep kind of pushing up. The rest of the team's starting to build up a little bit. I'm a little bit unsure about what I want to do. Kind of, obviously, by being a ranged unit, you're very dependent on the rest of your team to bring up shield units, melee units, which is why I so often don't enjoy playing ranged units. I'm much more of a melee player, really, most of the time. I much prefer my infantry units, because, yeah, we become so dependent. But unfortunately, the enemy gets some falconettis set up, and that really blocks kind of the position that I am. And it really blocks this corridor, makes it kind of a hard one to get down. So it kind of changes what I'm thinking about in terms of my approach. I'm thinking, is that really the best way to go now? I mean, we could go up the wall, but then there's enemy heroes already up there, so we're not realistically going to get up there with my unit. But, I don't really fancy going through that gateway when they've got all that stuff there. But there's not really much of a team push on the main front either. So this is, again, really one of the big downsides with any ranged unit, not specific to Tercios, but when you've only got a ranged unit, you're only a support player, and that's always going to be the case, and that's why it's such a mistake to, when occasionally you get players who just bring range. It's really a negative for your team. And if I wasn't trying to do the video, I would probably swap back to my Lancelets or something like that to try and have more of a melee unit, although even they're not particularly ideal for this sort of situation. Then we close the gate, doesn't really delay us for very long. And in the meantime, a little bit more support starts to build up here now, and we get some stalwarts starting to push forwards. It seems in the meantime that when those gates closed, I don't know if the falconetti went back for more ammunition, or just to try and relocate to a different gate entry point, but it enables us to kind of get in. And I'm trying to be a bit aggressive now. This is our one opportunity we've had so far in this final point, and we've only got 3 minutes left. So I'm trying to kind of build up momentum. Not an ideal spot. We are getting shots in and we are getting damage, but the ballista they've got at the end is kind of, one, blocking quite a bit of my damage, and it's also causing us kills. But we are still racking up a fair bit of damage against them, and I am at least temporarily safe from these falconettis that are shooting down the main alleyway. And we're trying to continue to get damage in. Really wish I'd brought a culverin or something with me so I could try and take out that enemy ballista. But we are starting to get a bit of a team build-up going on here. Get a friendly cannon being built. But while that's going on, we seem to be dropping off in the amount of kills we're getting, even though we're up to 150 now. And I decided to change angle and approach from a different way. Kind of push down this alley here. Get a few clips on the condos, but not really all that much. But there's actually quite a lot of crap around this corner. Quite a lot for us to deal with. So initially get set up, obviously continually buffing the unit as I said earlier. And the hussars do a good job of pushing for the enemy falconetti. I was trying to get my unit to shoot at them. We get a few hits on them, but it's a little bit too far, really. And obviously with the stalwarts and other units kind of blocking us up in the middle, not really very effective. But the hussars do a pretty good job of getting them pinned down. Pretty much except one, I think they missed just one falconetti unit, which you can see the occasional cannonball come flying our way. But as the rest of the team dies and quite a lot of stuff starts to come towards us, start to think, maybe it's the time to leave. Maybe we shouldn't be standing this way anymore. I should maybe have turned the corner and tried to hold with the team, but I made a run for it and I sent the unit back to the supply point. They are about out of ammo anyway. I do have a slight moment of bravery and decide to go back in though and try and help the team by attacking those stalwarts in the rear. And, it would kind of help a little bit. That dual blade gets himself killed, so that means we can pretty free attack on the back of these units. I just start to have a go with the artillery that they were obviously all walked past by this point. And it helps a little bit. Obviously it would have been nicer to do more to save the unit here, really. and to obviously be able to get more kills on these stalwarts. In hindsight, I should probably not have pulled the unit back to the supply point, but just outside the gateway, because I could have then brought them back in as and when kind of required. So I've got the unit on the way back to me. They are coming back up. They should be back in this gateway very shortly, and I'm hoping that we can get enough pressure on the point to be able to deal with this. Finish off the enemy drill blades. But then there's still quite a bit of stuff starting to build on point. But we've got 48 seconds left now. It's now or never. There's no point hiding at the back anymore. We might as well go for this. Just trying to get on what damage we can. Hoping we get enough of a build in this very short period of time. But it certainly isn't looking very good for us. We are continuing to rack up kills. But we get quite a bit of stuff starting to push out. And I get myself unfortunately killed by some of that enemy ranged. The Tercios are still fighting on. But these Imperial pikes advance. And wait for the advance. As soon as it does, that spells the end of the unit. And that's a little bit unfortunate, but we really had no choice but to push at the end. We tried to make it. That was a nice cannon shot. But unfortunately it just wasn't quite to be. But it kind of shows at least how, when I have Tercios, how I use them. I just try and basically keep them in the fight all the time. They're not the high damage DPS like the Imperials, but they can kind of keep that fight up for a long period of time. And that's what for me makes them a half effective unit. I think they have fallen quite a long way though from where they were 2 or 3 seasons ago. They certainly aren't as effective as they once used to be. I kind of once described them as the really love-hate unit, and I think actually it's kind of changed now, and for me they're just okay. And I think almost Imperials are becoming the musket unit to use. But anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel for a lot more Conqueror's Blade content. Thanks for watching, guys, and I shall see you all on the next video.